Five Nights at Freddy's. Salvage, Chapter 1. It was a hot, humid day in the summer of 1989, the air being so thick one could cut it with a knife. While the fathers were at work and the mothers did house chores, many of Hurricane's children were off from school, playing in their backyard creeks, trying to cool off, or chasing one another in the local park. Today a little boy was playing on the swing set, while the other kids raced around the playground. Everybody was so happy. Not far from where the children were swinging and sliding, and running, a purple car sat parked with its engine running. William Afton took a long sip of soda from the striped cup he often carried around in car stakeouts. A whole year had passed since he skipped town, but he ultimately decided it would be safe enough to come back for a little field trip. To be blunt, Afton had shoved all recollection of his recent failure at Freddy's far back into whatever qualified as a mind of his. His chief concern at the moment was scoping out new potential victims. Yes, he was back in business, no pun intended, and right now things looked promising. Summer officially started today, and news had spread about Freddy Fazbear's Pizza coming under new management. As such, Will was pretty confident about families returning to the pizzeria even after the events of the past. He would have plenty of chances to kill. There was no rush. However, some precautionary methods were needed. Thanks to Vicky's stunts, he didn't have a better chance of making a clean-cut getaway, which was rather annoying. No matter. Afton had been doing this for 6 years, and the closest to caught he'd ever been was an overnight stay in the Slammer for supposed child endangerment charges. Besides, the next time an animatronic tried to kill him, they had to talk to his handy-dandy hatchet first. Will coughed, clutching one side and wincing a little. "Easy, I'm just thinking things through," he said. The pain subsided a little bit, instead being replaced with discomfort. Afton was used to this, had been since 1983. Not long after his eldest son ran away, Will discovered something on the curb outside his house, something that killed the old man and made him a new creature. The discomfort entwined around each of his long, cracked ribs, around his spine, interlaced with his intestines. Afton had to adapt to it, because if he didn't, it would kill him. Adaptation, of course, came with a price tag of its own. Complete submission of his mind. The thing inside his body told him where to go, what to say, how to act, and when to do it. Such a dire truth at times didn't seem possible, but lo and behold, times had changed. Humans were an inferior species. Soon the discomfort faded away. William sighed, smiling in relief. Then he put the car in drive and pulled away, turning up the radio on full blast. OMD had a way of relieving stress, but then again most contemporary 80s bands did. Now the 80s were almost over, and William Afton couldn't help but feel like his so-called paradise might finally be coming to an end. If worse really did come to worse, all he really ever wanted was to see his children again, despite how impossible it was. The last few days before Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was reopened to the public were filled with hustle and bustle. Now under new management, the pizzeria was undergoing quite a few changes. It was given fresh wallpaper, new wood for the stages, different play areas, and reflooring. The animatronics themselves were promptly cleaned and refurbished. Freddy, unfortunately, felt that no amount of cleaning or repairing could fix his broken heart. The bear still hadn't gotten over Vicky's death. There simply was no way forward. They were so close to catching the killer of the lost children. And without Vicky, the murderer had become yet another face in the crowd. Unlike the other animatronics, she could tell the murderer apart from all the other adults. And from that discovery onwards, Freddy knew she was special. Their old leader, Fredbear, used to warn Freddy about hybrids, how vicious and untrustworthy they were, how violent around other animatronics they got, how they often sided with humans. Yes, Freddy supposed he did encounter Vicky's dark side from time to time, but he knew she had another side to her, one that was desperately trying to teach him something, one that was sorry whenever she hurt him or overstepped her boundaries. Freddy wished he never attacked her. Deep regret burrowed in his heart from thinking of the fight they had over her defending a guard. Well, remorse wasn't going to bring Vicky back. Nothing would. He might as well have single-handedly killed off the one chance they had at avenging the souls of the lost children. Sometimes Freddy wished he wasn't an animatronic. Life seemed so much better. No, more fair for the humans. They didn't have to worry about getting rusty, or breaking down, or glitching out. Not to mention, perhaps Vicky would have liked him better if he was human. Of course, there was no straightforward answer to that, and anyway, it couldn't be helped now. The animatronic bear groaned under his breath. He glanced around at the remaining workers in the pizzeria, who were giving the animatronics one last checkup before locking the place up for the night. Besides the original cast, there were some new bots being brought in for inspection. For once in 26 years, Freddy didn't care. He was so lost in thought that he didn't even jolt when one of the engineers came over and inserted a needle into his arm. The man had taken some oil out of Freddy to see if it needed to be changed. "All good," the human said. Freddy growled a little at him, but he didn't seem to hear it. The humans left, and Freddy took that opportunity to be alone. His bandmates respected his space, and hopefully the newcomers would learn that too. He needed to think. Freddy didn't have many options left. He was intelligent enough to know a few things. One, that this whole show business thing wasn't going to last forever. Two, a predator likes to hunt familiar territory, and so far as the killer was concerned, that appeared to be true. Had the murderer moved on, there would have been 0 points in chasing and killing security guards, engineers, or any adults unlucky enough to be in Freddy's proximity. As much as he tried to avoid it, Freddy's thoughts inadvertently returned to Vicky, their lost hope. He was admittedly annoyed with her at first, stealing the show, getting herself in trouble right away, which, like a gentleman, Freddy took the blame for, protecting not one, but 2 potential suspects. Then he discovered Vicky's gift of distinguishing humans, and Freddy felt inclined to follow her lead. He hated that he had gotten attached to her along the way, but he supposed it was bound to happen. He had trusted her, had led her close, had let her hug him, something he almost never allowed from his own friends. Freddy even let Vicky fall asleep on him a few times, if only to toy with her a little. Despite how protective she was of that stupid guard, she was utterly smitten with Freddy, and the thought amused him. But it wasn't long before he found himself catching feelings for her, too, whatever feelings were. Freddy genuinely liked Vicky. Her mismatched eyes, her plaid dress and bow, her gray foxtail, even that maniacal look she got on her face whenever she scared the piss out of someone. He saw firsthand that she was more than capable of killing people, and that she usually had very good reasons for sparing a human. Thanks to her, Freddy wasn't sure if he could ever attack security guards with the same level of gleeful malice ever again. Some tears rolled out of Freddy's eyes. He closed them, regaining himself before letting out a long, shuddery sigh. Aw, what the hell. He missed Vicky. All he wanted right now was to give her a nice big hug, if that was the least bit of comfort he could give her in this uncaring world. Because despite their disagreements on humans, she had made him happy, made him smile, the first real smile in a long time. Really, Jeremy? Are you serious? Max was talking on the phone with Jeremy while serving Tommy French fries. The boy didn't even look up from his handheld game. Max went back to the kitchen to check on the rest of dinner. Max, how was I supposed to know our 2 separate companies are rivals? Jeremy retorted. Workplaces do background checks on you, not the other way around. Max sighed, cutting some chicken up into a bowl. It's not your fault, Jeremy. Pizzerias aren't the only restaurants people go to, and children aren't our only customers. Food chains come and go. There's always the next best thing that comes along and wipes out the competition. Oh, that reminds me, Jeremy spoke up. Did you hear about Freddy's? Max stopped in mid-cut, a slice of chicken falling to the floor. What about it? He asked, his voice getting tense. Jeremy said, It's having another one of those quote-unquote grand reopenings. Pfft. I tell you, the night I started working there, it had a grand reopening, and guess what? It only stayed open for a week. Max peeked over at Tommy, hoping he wasn't paying attention to this conversation. Tommy grabbed a handful of fries and stuffed them in his mouth. That was because of the you-know-what, Max whispered. All of these incidents really aren't improving with time. Jeremy replied, Well, we burned that bridge long ago, and we never looked back. I, for one, have better things to do than step foot in a Fazbear Entertainment building ever again. Max put the bowl of chicken on the table and sat down. I never went back simply because of Tommy, he said. I can't afford to put him in that kind of danger. Tommy groaned. Dad, I'm not a baby. Max leaned over and took the game out of his hands, pausing it and putting it on a shelf behind him. I know, Max answered. You're a well-behaved son who eats before playing games. Then he said to the phone, I gotta go, Jeremy. We're about to eat dinner. Jeremy grunted. Okay then. Bye, Max. After he hung up, Max passed a few chicken slices to Tommy, who swallowed them whole. Somebody's got an appetite, Max laughed. Tommy shrugged and said, I just really want my game back. Max ate some chicken himself before saying, You spent a lot of time on that thing. Since when was your dear old dad replaced with a video game? When Tommy didn't answer, Max gave him a look of concern. What's wrong? He asked. Tommy looked up at his father gloomily. You'd get mad if I told you. Max shook his head. If you mean reasonably so, then yes, he replied. Tommy asked, Why can't we go anywhere fun this summer? Max exhaled loudly. Tommy, we've talked about this, he said. I'm not taking you back to that death trap. Why would you even want to go back, after going through what we did? Tommy pouted and crossed his arms. Because that crazy guy isn't even here anymore and all of my friends are going. All of your friends' parents are stupid, Max said. It's just that, I don't know. You'd think having a shotgun aimed at you would give you second thoughts. Tommy looked down, resentment in his eyes. Max tried again. Listen, buddy, I've worked there for quite a few years to know what I'm talking about. I guarantee you, every time that restaurant opens to the public, something bad happens. Kidnappings, killings, accidents with the robots, a damn fire or two. Tommy, as much as I don't believe in things like luck or karma, Freddy Fazbear's has this aura around it, one that draws in evil things. He took Tommy's hand and continued, I know you're not a baby, Tommy. You're growing up. But simply getting older and developing maturity are two separate things. I know you can be brave, but being brave doesn't mean you go looking for trouble. You've got nothing to prove to me or anyone else. You're already the bravest, most fun kid I know, and I'm proud that you're my son. Tommy was silent, but he looked back up at Max, his countenance a little better. The phone rang, startling them both. Excuse me, Max said, before leaving the table and flipping his phone open to answer it. Damn it, Jeremy, I'm trying to have dinner with my son. What is it now? A familiar voice spoke back to him. It was smooth, feminine, robotic. Wait, what? Sorry, Maxie. Didn't realize Jeremy was still up and breathing. Guess if you ever need him to disappear quietly one day, you know who to call. Max felt his heart explode in fear, and he caught his breath. Then he asked, Vicky? But how? How are you calling me? How are you even alive? Vicky giggled, sending old chills down Max's spine. Yeah, thanks for asking if I'm okay and all, she said. One of the workers came down here and found me. He generously decided to give me his phone so I could contact you. Max shot back. Translation, you ripped his arm off, right? Vicky chuckled. Well, I must admit it did take some persuading. Max took a deep breath. What do you want? He asked, angry and scared all at once. Just a favor, for old time's sake, she replied. Are you, by any chance, available for a summer job? Max said, No, in fact, I have a new job down at this pizza place. Vicky interrupted him. Yeah, about that. I might have sort of tracked you down a while back and conveniently got you fired tonight, so yeah. It's amazing what I can do in a year's time. Max exploded. You think I'd believe some stupid lie like... His house phone rang, stopping his rant. Dad, what's going on? Tommy asked, getting up. Nothing, son, Max murmured, waving at him to sit back down. He grabbed the other phone. Hello? He asked. It was his boss from his pizza job, and he sounded disgruntled. And he told Max what a dingbat he was for leaving his things at his no longer place of work. Max's jaw dropped open. He slammed the phone down and asked Vicky, What else have you been doing all this time? Answer me. Vicky laughed. Maxie. Hasn't anyone told you patience is a virtue? That's what I had to learn while I was down here. In fact, I'm still down here. I managed to get my phone friend off the radar, so nobody really cared when he ended up starving to death down with me. Anyways, your little damsel in distress is still waiting for her guard in bloody armor to come to the rescue. Max wanted to yell at her, but that wouldn't do any good. Instead, he managed to say, Vicky, don't get me wrong. I do like you, but not when you're being a murderous lunatic. I'll get you out of there, but nothing you say will convince me to come back to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The hybrid whispered, Speaking of murderous lunatics, what if I told you my creator was back in town? Max jolted like a live wire touched him. No, he murmured. No way. William Afton isn't in Hurricane, Vicky. I don't believe you. It's not true. Vicky howled. But it is. And that's not even the worst part. Not only did he leave me for dead and make you look like a loser, but the grand reopening is going to put him back on the path of homicide. Max heaved, running over to the kitchen sink and turning on the water. Hey, Max, don't go spewing out your guts just yet, Vicky growled. You want to save some kids? Come find me. Let's bury the hatchet once and for all. Oh, and give me a reason not to follow you. You're my favorite security guard, so it'd be a real shame if I started having second thoughts. With that, Vicky hung up, killing the line. You've got to be kidding me, Max groaned, holding his face.